The Fabelmans is directed by Steven Spielberg, and it's his most recent film. Last year he did West Side Story, got a Best Picture nom, and a Best Director nom. This year we got The Fabelmans. So this has got a lot of awards buzz. I believe it premiered at one of the film festivals many months ago, and it had amazing word of mouth, and followed up by an amazing trailer. This movie is long. It's 2 hours 31 minutes, and it did feel about that runtime. And it's not to say that I was bored, because I think the runtime of this movie was perfectly fine. I think at most they could have trimmed off maybe 10 minutes, and I'll get into why in a little bit. But this is a very personal story to Spielberg, because I know they say it's partially inspired from his childhood. I could tell throughout the whole movie what parts were from his childhood, just because of the amount of care put into it, the dialogue, the acting, just because you can really feel what was real, and that's what I really appreciated about this film. Obviously, this is a movie that people like me, people that review film, people that want to make film, people who are artists in general, will have a deep connection to this movie, because this is a film that doesn't ask you to understand the mindset. It expects you to get the mindset immediately and to click with it throughout the whole entire movie. As you watch the main character Sam make his movies, talk to his actors, talk to his parents about his movies, you just automatically feel that mental connection of why he says what he says, why he does what he does, and why his priorities that might seem messed up to someone else but seems perfectly normal to the viewer. At the same time, that's what makes the film so relatable. There are many other storylines to this film that I don't want to spoil, particularly with the family aspect. It didn't go necessarily the way I thought it would, but it found a pretty solid balance between the film side and the personal side too. It really just felt like you were just watching Sam's life, rather than there was like the film side of the film and then there's the family side of the film, and it's playing tug of war. Because overall, throughout the beginning to the end of the movie, it finds a great balance from the beginning to end. That's the biggest praise I can give it. It didn't feel like it was a hodgepodge of ideas. There's one part of the movie, like at the end of the second act, where it dials it back on the film stuff and leans more into his family life, which is completely fine. It's just I found myself less entertained, because it's just, what my interests were going into the film versus what I was less interested in. And obviously, with a director like Spielberg making something autobiographical slightly, I'm going to be more interested in the film side of it than the family side of it. I'm not saying that I wasn't invested with the family, because I was. Every actor who was part of the family felt like they really were that family, and that's when you can tell that Spielberg's directing really influenced all these great performances. Michelle Williams is great. I cannot remember the actor's name who played Sam. I believe his first name was Gabriel, though. He was great in this movie as well. Him and Michelle Williams obviously being the standouts. Paul Dano's in it, and he's great as well. And so is Seth Rogen, and he's really good as well. So we have a very solid cast, and it's funny to see Seth Rogen in this movie, because he definitely plays it almost kind of Seth Rogen-like. He doesn't get too indulgent with it. It was a perfect amount of Seth Rogen in a movie that is a personal, heartfelt story, which is funny to say out loud. While the cinematography in this film is quite good, I do have one little quap with it. I don't know if it was my theater's projector, but I doubt it, because it was throughout some scenes and not in other scenes. So I think it was part of the movie, but it was almost like a gray halo filter on the shots for some scenes. To me, it didn't look amazing. It reminded me of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, but that was only very in between and only a couple scenes. While this film is very emotionally resonant, and it finds a very smart way to merge that emotion with the family, there are a couple scenes that feel a little sappy, particularly one scene that takes place after he shows a film in his high school, and one of their reactions, one of the football players or whatever the jock's reaction was, it felt a little sappy. It felt not very realistic, but at the same time, it feels like something that might have happened. So that's what I'm confused on. There's some things in this movie where I'm like, that was a little off, but I don't know how real to life it is. But to me, while watching it, it just felt like a little sappy as I was watching it compared to the rest of the movie. Around the second half, the movie introduces a lot of new characters and a lot of storylines to Sam's life, and they did it in a very well done way where it didn't overwhelm you with information. It really just felt like you were watching Sam's childhood and seeing how film impacted his life. But there's a couple times where it felt like it might have gotten in the way of the movie. Only a couple times where I felt like, let's just get back to this part of the story instead, because the core of this movie is with the family, Michelle Williams, Paul Dano. When it cuts sometimes to high school situations, while it wasn't particularly boring or I wasn't invested at all, I just found myself thinking that I wanted wanted to see more what was going to happen with the mom and the dad rather than his high school people. The Fabelmans is a very, very good film. I definitely think if you are a film person, if you are someone who wants to do filmmaking, if you're an artist of any kind, this is the movie to watch because it understands a lot of grievances that people like that go through. It breaks it down in a very sweet way that can, make you feel good going to bed tonight knowing that everything's going to be okay. Spielberg really did do his best here when it comes to trying to inspire a young generation of filmmakers, and that's something I really respect. Yes, this is going to be Oscar bait by some, and I get that. It's the type of movie the Oscars will just eat up. It's about movie making. It's touching. It has great performances. This is definitely going to get a Best Picture nom. Will it win? That's a big question mark right now. Really good, strong film. Like I did have my couple nitpicks with it. Besides that, I do hear that this film is better on a rewatch, and so this is one film that I really want to rewatch again before I definitely say this is like my favorite movie of the year, or this is like in the top 10 or something like that. But as of right now, I want to give The Fabelmans an 8.8 out of 10. Comment down below what you guys thought of The Fabelmans. By the way, this movie was only showing in one theater in my city. I'm not going to say my exact location, obviously, but I'll just say that I live in Virginia, and I live in the most populated part of Virginia. There's 3 big theaters. One's really close to my house. One's about halfway to my house. That's the really nice one. And then one's like a little bit out, but not that far. So there's 3 big theaters. The one furthest out was the only theater showing it. They only have 4 run times a day, and they're only showing it for 2 days, and they're cutting it out. I know someone who works at the nicest theater in the area, and they say that they're just not showing it just because they don't think it'll make ticket sales. At that AMC, it has an IMAX theater, a Dolby theater. It's the most well-known theater in our area, and they're saying that they are not showing this film because they don't think it will make the sales. And they have the poster of the film in that theater, but they are not showing it. And I think that is absolutely ridiculous. And I think that every film, if it's going to one theater, it should be going to all theaters. I think it's ridiculous that I had to go 10 miles, which to me 10 miles is far considering the area I live in. I'm not saying it's going to help the box office. People who are in their 20s can make calls for movie theaters on what movies can and can't be shown. I think it's absurd because I know for a fact the person that works at the local AMC said, I know someone who works there, and they said the person that chooses the show times chose not to show this movie. Someone in their mid-20s making a big business deal because, movies make a lot of money. Even if a movie flops, you can still make a lot of money in one theater. And also, I want to point out that the one theater showing it was the cheapest theater, and it was the least comfortable theater, and the one that no one really goes to because the other 2 theaters in my area are just a lot nicer. So I just need to get that off my chest because I think it's ridiculous. But comment down below what you guys thought of The Fabelmans. I thought it was a very good film, obviously. So check it out. I also did see Tar. I intend to get my review on that soon. I do have to do my season review of Andor, which I will get on that as well. And in 2 days, I am seeing Glass Onion. So we're going to have a bunch of reviews coming out real soon. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that. And adios.